All right, coming up on this edition of Today's Verdict, for the fifth consecutive year, New York City's Rent Guidelines Board has voted in favor of rent increases for rent-stabilized units, despite long-standing calls from tenant advocates to freeze rents. Then, with just weeks left in Albany's legislative session, environmental advocates are turning up the heat, pushing lawmakers to pass two key bills targeting toxic PFAS, or also known as forever chemicals found in everyday products. And finally, a new report confirms what many suspected. The deadly 2023 parking collapse in Lower Manhattan was no accident. Now, the family of garage manager Willis Moore, killed in the collapse, is suing. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. Hello and welcome to Today's Verdict, the interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney David Lesh. Well, Today's Verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected. Make sure to tweet us at David Lesh and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. Also, check us out at BronxNet.tv. Rent relief remains out of reach for many New Yorkers. For the fifth year in a row, the city's Rent Guidelines Board is moving towards raising rents on stabilized leases, despite growing pressure to freeze them. One-year lease hikes could reach up to 4.75%, though the board just lowered the proposed two-year increase. To talk to us more about this, we have in studio Sarah Delaney. Sarah, really nice to have you again. Listen, we seem to be discussing this all the time. At least once a year or once every couple of years, there's a rent increase. People are unhappy. Why do we keep coming here on this particular topic? Are people just not satisfied with how they're being taken care of in terms of rents?
The tenants are not satisfied with how we're being taken care of in rents, but the landlords are receiving, they're actually up 12% for their net return on interest. So they're not being hurt. They're not hurting at this point. So I don't understand why they constantly raise the rent. The RGB board can actually keep the rents as they are, lower them, or raise them. So why do they continuously raise them? That question is the same thing that I have.
Now, what are the landlords arguing? Is it just is rent going up for them? Is heat and hot water going up that they need such a large increase? What's their rationale?
Some of the landlords are saying that the repairs, the necessary hot water you were stating, but the money, the capital, the MCIs, but the thing that they're asking for, I don't see being taken out in the buildings. The rents are going up. It's just too damn high, excuse my language, but the rent is going up. Salaries are remaining the same, if not lower, and we're not receiving the services that we're being paid for.
Let's talk about CASA, all right? Community action.
Excuse me, can I say one last thing?
Of course, please.
If a landlord had any problems not making their rent, right, or not making a profit, there are actual state and city programs that they can apply for to help them get at least a 5% yes.
Well, what types of programs?
So we have the DHCR will allow an increase of 5%. If you have, this is the Division of Housing and Community Renewal, but the only thing that you have to do is open up your books in order to apply for it. And we have the Department of Finance that will give you a tax break for 5%, but you have to open up your books.
Nobody wants to open their books.
No, they're not. Since 2000, we've only had 5 people apply for this. And out of the 5 landlords, they all own buildings that were below 10 apartments, and only 2 were approved, and the other 3 still had issues with their books. But if anyone is saying that they're not making their rent, they're not making profits, then why are they not accepting this help?
Which is why they don't want to open their books.
Exactly. They don't want to open their books. If they open their books, we'll truly see what's going on.
So what is CASA's position? What are you doing to try and change the way things are in New York?
CASA is a program that helps people advocate for themselves in and outside the courtroom. We provide tenant rights. We let people know what's going on. We stand up. We are trying to work with rights to counsel so that people have that going on. We are also at this point in time, and this has been going on, CASA has been in effect since, 2000? So this is our 20th anniversary where we're helping people live and maintain their lifestyle, a quality lifestyle. But it hasn't been, as you've seen in the last 20 years. It's continually decreasing. But we are actually working really very hard this year to combat the RGB, and we actually have a rent freeze that we've been working on. We have over 17,000 signatures of people that are saying that we demand a rent freeze in New York. So we're asking all of the mayoral candidates this year, do you support a rent freeze?
And what do they say?
Some say they do, some say that they're looking at the numbers, some say no. But as a tenant and as tenants, we will be looking very closely at the candidates who support our issues, and we will be voting as such.
Is there one particular candidate that you like better than some of the others? Really?
CASA can't recommend, or we can't do that, and we won't do that. We ask you to just be educated and find out the facts and look at it. So we just had a forum that went on last night. Listen to what they're saying, and more importantly, listen to what they're not saying.
Well, can you tell me, in terms of our present mayor, how you feel?
I don't feel as though Mayor Adams is a mayor for all.
Okay.
If you have to be a mayor for all of New York, not just for some, and you have to take everyone into consideration. And the Rent Guidelines Board is designed by him. The people are elected by him, so they're placed. And the people that he's put on this board are not to help the tenants of New York City.
Certainly no one who wants to open their books.
And no, he hasn't applied either.
Let's talk a little bit about gentrification, because
Yes.
many people feel that, Sarah, that it's just a natural process of life in neighborhoods. You know, wealthier people do move in, they take over the neighborhood. You see what happens in Brooklyn. Can we say that the rent increases are just a natural result of gentrification?
Gentrification is a process of when new people move in and the people who are there are moved out. If you're going to move into a neighborhood and upgrade the neighborhood, then everyone who is there should have a part and take place with that. But that's not what's happening. And the Bronx is the last frontier. As you've seen
That's
all
right, it
throughout,
is.
the last frontier. So this is why the Bronx has the highest rate of evictions going on. We have affordable housing. The rents that they're charging, $2,500, $300, $3,000. People, working class people can't afford that. We're having to make decisions between childcare, rent, our medicine, things of that nature, everyday necessities.
Well, Sarah, look into your crystal ball for the next couple of years, right? You're going to be here for a while. So where are we heading? What's your thoughts? Let's say you're here in another couple of years. Are you making ground? Are you
I'm
being
not
heard?
planning on going anywhere, and many New Yorkers are not either. But we have a hard way to go, and we're willing to fight to stay in the city that we built, the city that we've lived in, the city that we've given our lives to. I was a nurse. I am a nurse, but I was injured. And this is something that people have to take into consideration. We have men, women, children, disabled people that they're being affected, negatively impacted. And this shouldn't happen.
If there's one thing you would say to the viewers now, someone who's watching, having a hard time making their rent, looking at eviction, housing court, what would you say?
Know your rights, come to CASA, find out what's going on, pay attention to what's going on in your grassroots elections, the people that make decisions for you on a daily basis. And this is what's most important. You have to be involved. You have to be involved. If you're not involved, then what can you say?
And how should they be involved?
Come out, protest, pay attention to what's going on, take part in the conversations, understand the facts, and act on them. You have to represent yourself.
All right, well, it's great stuff. And you said you'll be back here maybe in a year and a half and two, and we'll get a little bit of an update.
One other thing I'd like to say is on June 12th, we're having an action which we'll be marching from 161st Street in front of the Supreme Court building down to Hostess Community College, where the Rent Guidelines Board hearing will take place.
Office.
Yes, exactly. So we're asking everyone to come out and walk with us. And when you get down there, let them know how it's impacting your life. We have people that are living in deplorable conditions, and the rents are going higher, the salaries are not.
Well, Sarah, that's all the time we have, all right? But listen, don't go anywhere, because we'll be right back.
Pardon me. Can I make
Sure, make one more statement.
One more statement is, in 2019, the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019 was put into effect, right? And we got tenant rights. We got good cause eviction. We cannot allow these rights that we were given or granted to be taken away from us by any incoming mayor or anyone else.
I like it.
We have to stand on that.
And on that, we got to go.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.
All right.
Okay, stay with us. We'll be right back. Environmental advocates are pushing lawmakers to pass two key bills targeting toxic PFAS, also known as forever chemicals, found in everyday products. From makeup to cookware, these chemicals are everywhere. To tell us more about this, we have Sophia Longsworth, Director of Toxics and Policy from Clean and Healthy. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Listen,
Great, thank you. How are you?
I wear this stuff all the time. I mean, everything from perfumes to colognes to moisturizers. Should I be worried?
Unfortunately, yes. PFAS, forever chemicals, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, they are ubiquitous in a great range of products that we use every single day. Our everyday personal care products, like you said, your lotions, your shampoos, and the makeup that some of us wear, PFAS are in there.
But it seems like everybody wants these things. They want to wear. They want to go into Sephora. You know, they want to purchase all these different items. How do you get the customer to wake up?
Yeah, I mean, of course, people want to wear clothing, they want to use their personal care products, but are they aware that the chemicals that are in there are harmful, they're toxic, they're dangerous to their health, and their body cannot get rid of it? I don't know that the majority of people know that, and if they did know that, they would not want these toxic chemicals in there.
Let's talk about these substances. What proof do you have that they're dangerous?
Yeah, there's been established peer-reviewed studies that have proven that this class of dangerous chemicals, they are man-made and synthetic, so they do not break down either in the environment or in our bodies. And they've been linked to a host of health impacts, including low sperm counts, developmental issues in children because it passes on from the mother to the child, cancers, and reduced immune defense.
Who monitors this? What government agency is in charge of making sure that everyone's protected?
It would be lovely if on the federal level we could have regulation of PFAS chemicals. Unfortunately, that is not the case currently. Here in New York State, we have been able to restrict PFAS in some product sectors, including firefighting foam, food packaging, apparel was the latest one. It went into effect in January of this year.
What I read here, by the way, is PFAS contamination is a widespread issue affecting drinking water, soil, even the air we breathe. Mm-hmm. Is there one particular area that's worse than others? Is it the air that we're breathing or the food that we're eating? What would you say?
So in places where PFAS is manufactured, that is definitely most dangerous to the people who live in those areas. In places where there has been found to be water contamination, the people who are exposed to that drinking water that has PFAS in it, they are most at risk of consuming it, ingesting it, and having those health impacts that I mentioned. We are all...
I'm sorry, keep going.
Oh, we're all at risk because, like I mentioned at the top, the PFAS chemicals are ubiquitous. They're in almost every product that we use. So we're trying to get rid of them restrict them in the products where there are known alternatives, safer alternatives, where the PFAS chemicals are not necessary.
You know, we see that on the screen right now, all the different types of products where the chemicals are used. I just wonder if these products can even be created without the chemicals. I mean, what are your thoughts to that question?
They can be, they have been, and they continue to be. There are products on the market that are PFAS free. And like I mentioned, PFAS is a class of chemicals, so we're aiming to restrict it as a class rather than chemical by chemical, because the class has over 15,000 individual chemicals.
You personally, What chemicals have affected you, or do you think have affected you?
Well, I have not done any tests to know specifically which chemicals, but I do know that there are chemicals that I have been exposed to. I once upon a time used nonstick pots and pans that were Teflon, and upon learning more about the dangers of these chemicals, I made the switch over to safer stainless steel, because once you heat up the cookware that has the Teflon in it, you're first of all you're inhaling the fumes, the PFAS fumes, which are very toxic. You can get Teflon flu. You can look it up, and that is harmful, especially to our vulnerable population, babies, elderly people, but also to us. And then when you, unfortunately, when you nick your pot and pan, you're supposed to, the Teflon website says you're supposed to get rid of it once there's any damage to it. But let's be honest, we don't get rid of it as soon as there's damage to it. Now, these chemicals are getting into the food that we're actually ingesting. We're putting it into our mouths. It's getting into our bodies, and our bodies cannot break them down.
Interestingly, the college I graduated from, Union College, actually is where they developed Teflon. It's where it was created, and it was mass marketed. I wonder how these agencies or these colleges are reacting now to the fact that people feel that their products are defective.
It's not that we feel that their products are defective. We know that the science has proven that they are harmful to human health. It's not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of scientific fact.
All right, so what would you say to a viewer now who's watching and uses all the different products that were on the screen, and they're a little bit afraid that they're going to come down with some kind of medical issue? What would you say to them?
Yeah, well, it's natural to feel some sort of angst when you see this and you get this information. First of all, we're not blaming any consumers. It is the responsibility of the government really to ensure that the products that are on shelves are safe for consumers. People should not have to have toxicology degrees to know what to shop for to make sure that their families are safe and healthy. So that's the first thing. And secondly, just take a look at the products that you're using. And if the products that you use continuously on a daily basis have shown up on that list on the screen, then maybe see what you can do to replace it with something that is safer.
So I know you're from Clean and Healthy. Tell me, as you're the director of toxics and policy, what are you doing to change the narrative?
Yeah, so we are working towards getting bills passed to ensure that the products that people use on a daily basis do not contain these toxic chemicals, the PFAS. So we, earlier this year, were able to get the ban on toxics and PFAS in menstrual products passed in both the Senate and the Assembly. So now it is up to Governor Hochul to sign that into law to ensure that the menstrual products that people use for decades of their lives are not going to poison them and be harmful to their health for decades. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say politically, things have changed in this city. We're moving a little bit more to the right. I think the country's moving a little bit more to the right. How is that affecting your position on this particular issue?
Well, the poisoning of people and toxic chemicals is a bipartisan thing. It's not a matter of toxic chemicals harming people on the left, the right, or the center. We're all exposed to it, whether it's the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the products that we put on our skin, or that we cook out of.
Well, well put,
not a political issue.
Sophia, well put, and we're going to leave it there. Hopefully you can come back soon and let us know how you're progressing.
Thank you so much.
All right, don't go anywhere because we'll be right back. Well, the Morelli law firm says years of negligence and ignoring structural warnings turned the building into a ticking time bomb. We hear from attorney David Sorokin on why he says this tragedy was entirely preventable. David, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
My first question is to you: where's Ben? Where's Mr. Morelli?
Well, we have a whole lot of cases in the office, and I'm one of the managing partners of the firm. So Ben and I have worked together for a very long time. and he and I are working on this case very closely together.
Ben Morelli is a very close friend of my family. We go back years and years. He gives great advice to my dad. He's given me great advice. Next time you tell him I want him sitting here so we can have a little bit of a discussion. Okay?
I will send my best, absolutely.
All right, talk to me a little bit about the tragedy. Tell me what happened.
Sure. So back in April of 2023, this garage down at 57 Ann Street in Lower Manhattan collapsed. And it collapsed and killed my client, Willis Moore, who had been working there for over 20 years, had several kids, and a wonderful family, was a hardworking man by all accounts. And the reason that this happened, this horrible, tragic collapse, was because of gross negligence and recklessness in taking care of this nearly 100-year-old garage down in Lower Manhattan. So the issue with this garage and with many buildings throughout Manhattan, unfortunately, and we have a lot of cases, unfortunately, similar, is that these old structures become dilapidated. They require constant upkeep, and the owners and operators of these garages and buildings don't do that.
You know, it's similar to these co-op or condo apartments in Florida. It's just only a matter of time before we have more collapses. What are the landlords doing to try and get ahead of the issue so that this doesn't happen again?
So unfortunately, oftentimes they're not. They're prioritizing profits and holding on to their money versus safety, and they're doing the bare minimum. So what happened here with reference to the garage here was that there was a law called Local Law 126 that was implemented by the city that requires that garage owners hire their own engineers to do periodic inspections of their garages and then report to the DOB whether or not it's safe, unsafe, or needs some type of repair. And there are other laws. Local Law 11 has to do with building facades. It's been around for decades and decades. This is a newer law. So in this case, what happened was that 57 Ann Street, the garage, they hired an engineering company called EDG to do an inspection. And what EDG did was they came in, they inspected, and they found all sorts of things that were wrong with this garage. There was just a big report that was released recently. And one of the biggest issues was there was a load-bearing brick pier on the third floor of this 4-story garage. And EDG misidentified this load-bearing brick pier as actually having a steel encasement beam beneath it, underneath the brick enclosure. But in fact, there was no steel beam. And the bricks were actually what was holding up that portion of the garage. So rather than report this dilapidated beam with bricks falling off as unsafe to the DOB, the building itself just started repairing it on its own. They had their own people, rather than engineers, rather than have people come in and shore up the garage, add extra support. They literally had people with no experience and no qualification, peeling off bricks. It's so ridiculous that you almost can't believe it.
In our field, in this particular premises liability type of field, you talk about notice, right? And the ability to prove that the landlord should have been on notice because of something that was potentially dangerous. Do you use these reports to bolster your claim, or is there other ways that you're going to prove this at trial?
Without question. So before this report came out, because there was a fatality, the DOB hired an independent company to do their own investigation. It took almost 2 years, and they recently released a report. But even before that, we had all sorts of publicly filed documents about violations that were previously issued to the city, to this building, to this garage, that they didn't fix, that they didn't repair, that were left open, that were already concerning. They were overloading cars, heavy electric vehicles in this garage, and now finding out about this pier, this load-bearing pier, and how they misidentified it as having a steel beam within it just makes matters even worse.
Let's talk about the plaintiff in this particular case. Has there been any settlement offers? Has there been any discussion in terms of money at all at this point?
So, at this juncture, it's really too early. We're pressing forward. We have the full support of the family, of the children. And also, don't forget, there's numerous other plaintiffs that were involved in this case. We have the only fatality, so we're going to end up probably taking the lead on this. But things have been held up as the cases are now getting consolidated to all be brought together through discovery. And now we're going to start in earnest on that.
Cases like these almost class action types of cases, are usually handled by one judge. Is that going to happen with this particular
It is.
situation?
It is. It is. We've already been assigned to a judge. We're going to be having a conference on this case next month. And once we have that conference, we'll put discovery dates on an order and really get going.
Is there also going to be like a mini board or people who are going to get together and kind of represent the plaintiff's bar, maybe do the depositions and do the most of the legwork here? I know there's only one fatality, but I'm sure there are so many more property damage claims.
Yeah, so we've been involved in cases like that in the past. When there's a big Amtrak derailment 10 years ago, we were one of the firms who represented, the nearly 200 people injured or killed. There's fewer people in this case, so my anticipation is that we'll work with the other firms. But given that we have the fatality, I'd imagine that we'll, take the laboring war on this for sure.
It's a difficult issue and painful to really talk about. Does it look like it's the type of case that has to be tried and go to a verdict, or do you think maybe this can be worked out?
You never know. I would never say never, but I see this as a clear case of punitive damages, and that complicates matters. When you have gross negligence, recklessness, public safety, reckless disregard for public safety, because there's more compounding factors. You have different people involved and different people who may have to pay versus insurance when it's punitive damages.
When you're dealing with gross negligence, recklessness, it's a very high threshold. How do you intend to prove that the building really knew from the experts' report? How are you going to do that?
Yeah, so it's funny you asked that. We actually just did that in a similar case where it was a local law 11 case with a piece of falling building facade. We got a decision last week where the judge is allowing us to pursue punitive damages at trial. But yeah, the way that we'll prove that we already have hired experts, we've already done inspections. This report that we received from the city's engineer is very, very strong. And it's clear that this building, the owners, the tenants, were on notice that there were problems at this garage for a long time. And even during this local law 126 inspection, they were doing this for over a year. And the accident happened on April 18th of 2023. I mean, they could have taken action days before, weeks before, to shore up this pier and give some extra support rather than continuing to peel off bricks. So they definitely knew about this.
Listen, I park in a Manhattan garage, as do most of the viewers who are watching, maybe in a Bronx garage. Your last thoughts?
Yep. My last thoughts are, I hope that buildings, garages around New York City take these matters seriously, because all too often it requires a fatality or some catastrophe like this to implement change.
All right. Well, David, thank you very much. Please send my regards to Ben and the rest of the firm.
I will. Thank you.
All right. That's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course you, the viewers, for watching. If you missed any part of today's show, be sure to check it out on YouTube. Also remember, if there's a legal issue or topic you'd like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to contact me at davidlesh@bronxnet.org or tweet me at davidlesh, and make sure to hashtag #AskToday'sVerdict. For myself and all of us at Today's Verdict, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. I'm David Lesh, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks with an all-new episode of Today's Verdict right here on BronxNet. You take care.